The radar operator froze mid-breath. The object on his screen wasn't supposed to exist. It had just crossed into Soviet airspace, moving faster than anything they had ever seen. And then, before anyone could react, it got even faster. The room inside the Soviet radar station fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. Rows of green radar screens flickered in the dim light, casting ghost-like reflections across the operators' faces. Outside, somewhere deep in the frozen outskirts of Siberia, the night stretched endlessly. But inside, something had just broken that silence. "Confirm that reading," the commanding officer said, his voice low but tight. The young radar operator swallowed. I already did, sir." His fingers trembled slightly as he adjusted the dials again, hoping, praying that it was just interference. "It wasn't. There's an unidentified aircraft," he said slowly. "Altitude, 80,000 feet. The room shifted. That alone didn't make sense. "Nothing flew that high." "Speed?" the officer asked. The operator hesitated. "It's fluctuating. Give me a number." He leaned closer to the screen. "Mach 3. Silence. Someone in the back let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh, then quickly stopped when no one else joined. "Impossible," another officer muttered. But the blip on the radar didn't care what they believed. It kept moving. Fast. Too fast. Thousands of miles away, high above the curvature of the Earth, the aircraft cut through the sky like a blade. Inside the cockpit, everything was calm, controlled, precise. The pilot sat encased in a pressurized suit, surrounded by instruments glowing softly in the darkness. Outside, the sky wasn't blue anymore. It was almost black. At this altitude, you could see the edge of space, crossing into monitored zone. The reconnaissance systems officer said calmly. No panic, no urgency, just routine. Below them, an entire superpower was scrambling. Back in the Soviet command center, the panic had begun. "Track it," the officer snapped. "Don't lose it." "We're trying, sir. It's moving too fast." The radar blip streaked across the screen, leaving behind a faint trail of confusion. "Deploy interceptors," the officer ordered. MiG units are being scrambled now. Somewhere in the distance, sirens began to echo. Airbases lit up. Pilots ran toward their aircraft. Engines roared to life. The Soviet Union had faced threats before, but this was different. High above, the pilot glanced at his instruments. "Multiple radar locks," he said. The systems officer nodded. "They see us." A brief pause, then, "Let them." On the ground, Soviet interceptor jets screamed into the sky. Their mission was simple: identify, intercept, destroy. But as they climbed higher and higher, something became very clear. Very quickly, they weren't gaining. They were falling behind. "Target speed increasing," the radar operator shouted. "How is that possible?" Someone yelled. "It's accelerating." The officer slammed his fist against the console. "Launch surface-to-air missiles, now." Deep underground, missile systems activated. Massive steel doors opened. Guidance systems locked on. For a moment, everything aligned. "We have a lock," the technician confirmed. "Fire." The missile launched with a violent burst of fire and smoke, tearing into the sky with a deafening roar. Then another, and another. Two. 3 missiles, racing upward, guided by radar, chasing something they barely understood. Inside the command room, everyone watched. This was it. No aircraft could outrun a missile. High above, the systems officer glanced at his screen. Missiles incoming. The pilot didn't panic, didn't hesitate. He simply pushed the throttle forward. The aircraft surged, faster, hotter. The outer skin began to heat up from the friction, glowing slightly in the cold darkness of the upper atmosphere. Speed climbed. Mach 3.1, Mach 3.2, Mach 3.3. The missiles followed, but not for long. Missile 1, losing lock. Missile 2, off trajectory. Missile 3, the radar operator stopped. It can't keep up. The room fell silent again. Not the same silence as before. This one was heavier, darker, because now they understood. It's outrunning them, someone whispered. No, the commanding officer said slowly, his eyes fixed on the screen. It's leaving them behind. High above, the pilot allowed himself a small breath. Missiles evaded. The systems officer checked the readings. No damage, no contact. Below them, the entire defense system of a global superpower had just failed. And they hadn't even come close. Back in the Soviet command center, the radar blip continued moving, untouched, unstoppable. Track it, the officer demanded again. But something had changed. The operators weren't just confused anymore. They were afraid. What is that thing? One of them asked quietly. No one answered. Because no one knew. Minutes passed. Attempts continued. More interceptors, more tracking, more adjustments. Nothing worked. Every system they had, every weapon, every defense, felt useless. And then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the blip began to fade. Signal weakening, the operator said. Why? It's leaving our range. No, he shook his head. It's choosing to leave. The screen went blank. Silence. No explosion. No wreckage. No victory. Just absence. The commanding officer stood still, staring at the empty radar screen. Get me Moscow, he said quietly. His voice had changed. This wasn't just an incident anymore. This was a message. Thousands of miles away, the aircraft began its descent. Mission complete. No damage. No interception. No resistance that mattered. Inside the cockpit, the pilot finally spoke. They never stood a chance. The systems officer didn't respond immediately. He just looked down at the data, at the radar logs, at the missile attempts, at the complete failure of an entire defense network. Then he said, they're going to learn from this. A pause. And next time, they won't miss. The pilot looked out at the dark horizon, at the thin line separating Earth from space. And for the first time, there was something else in his voice. Not fear, not doubt, but something close. Yeah, he said quietly, but neither will we. The second time it entered Soviet airspace, they were ready. New missiles, new radar systems, new calculations. This time, they weren't trying to track it. They were trying to kill it. The room looked different now. Same radar screens, same cold lighting. But the energy had changed. No confusion, no disbelief. No. Only preparation. Weeks had passed since the first incursion. And in those weeks, the Soviet Union had done something it rarely admitted they learned. Engineers worked day and night. Mathematicians rewrote interception models. Commanders studied every second of the previous encounter, every movement, every speed change, every weakness they thought they saw. This time, it won't escape, the senior defense commander said, his voice calm but heavy with intent. No one questioned him. Because this time, they had built something specifically for it. Far below the surface, hidden in reinforced silos, a new generation of surface-to-air missiles waited. Faster, smarter, deadlier. Unlike the last ones, these didn't chase blindly. They predicted. Target profile uploaded. A technician confirmed. Flight pattern simulated. Engagement window calculated. The commander stepped closer to the main screen. And the probability? The technician hesitated. Higher than before, not confidence, but enough. Miles above, cutting through the upper atmosphere once again. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird returned. Same altitude, same speed, same confidence. Inside the cockpit, everything felt familiar. Routine, predictable. But something wasn't right. Radar activity is different, the systems officer said quietly. The pilot didn't respond immediately. He adjusted his heading slightly. What kind of different? A pause. Too clean. Below them, radar systems lit up, not chaotically like before, but in perfect coordination. Multiple stations. Multiple locks, all synchronized. They've upgraded, the systems officer said. The pilot exhaled slowly. Yeah, I can feel it. Back in the Soviet command center, no one was shouting. No one was panicking. Every movement was controlled. Calculated. Target confirmed, the radar operator said. Speed holding at Mach 3.2. Altitude steady. The commander nodded. Good. A pause. Then, let it come deeper. Inside the cockpit, that was the moment everything changed. They're not reacting, the pilot said. They're waiting. The systems officer looked at his instruments again, and then his expression shifted. Multiple lock signatures. Too many. Back on the ground, the commander raised his hand, and then closed his fist. Launch. This time, it wasn't 3 missiles. It was a wall. Dozens of missiles erupted into the sky almost simultaneously, tearing through the clouds with violent force. But unlike before, they didn't all chase from behind. They spread out. Some climbed higher, some angled ahead. Some moved wide, creating a net. They're predicting our path, the systems officer said, his voice tighter now. The pilot's grip on the controls hardened. Yeah, they're not chasing. They're trapping us. The first missile streaked past, close enough to shake the aircraft. Then another, closer, adjusting course. The aircraft banked sharply at impossible speed. Heat surged across its surface. The engines screamed, but the missiles adapted. They're correcting mid-flight. The systems officer shouted. That's new! Warning signals filled the cockpit. Sharp, relentless, overlapping. Distance, closing. For the first time, the advantage was shrinking. Back in the command center, eyes locked onto the screen. No one moved. No one spoke. Engagement in progress. The radar display lit up with converging trajectories. Lines intersecting. Closing in. Now, the commander whispered. High above the sky turned hostile. Missiles from below. Missiles from ahead. Missiles adjusting in real time. We're getting boxed in, the systems officer yelled. The pilot didn't respond. His world had narrowed to numbers. Speed, altitude, distance. Timing. He made a decision. Hold on. He pushed the aircraft harder than it was ever meant to go. Mach 3.3. Mach 3.4. The frame trembled. Heat built rapidly. The edges of the aircraft began to glow faintly again. Structural limits, the systems officer warned. If we push further, we don't have a choice. A missile exploded nearby. Not a direct hit, but close enough to rattle everything. Alarms screamed. Pressure fluctuation. Stabilizing. The pilot's voice cut through the chaos. Angle climb now. The nose lifted. Higher, 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 higher. They were climbing beyond their usual envelope. Beyond safety. Missiles followed, but they were struggling now. Velocity mismatch, the systems officer said, almost in disbelief. They're starting to lose. Another explosion. Closer. Fragments rattled against the aircraft. Damage check. Minimal, but that was too close. Back on the ground, the commander leaned forward. Why aren't they hitting? Target speed increasing beyond predicted parameters, a technician said. They're exceeding our models. The commander's jaw tightened. Then update the models. Up above the aircraft surged forward again. Mach 3.5. The sky around them felt like it was tearing apart. One by one, the missile signals began to drop. Missile lock lost. Another one lost. They can't. Sustain that speed." The systems officer stared at the screen, then looked at the pilot. "We're outrunning them, again." The pilot didn't smile, didn't celebrate, because this time it had been close, too close. Minutes later, the radar signals faded. The sky went quiet again. Back in the Soviet command center, no one spoke. They had thrown everything at it, everything new, everything improved, and still it survived. The commander slowly stepped back, his face unreadable. "Next time," he said quietly, "we don't just predict where it will be." He turned toward the darkened screen. "We control where it can go. Far." Away the aircraft descended once more. Inside the cockpit, silence. Then, "Damage report complete," the systems officer said. "Still operational." A pause. "But they're adapting fast." The pilot nodded slowly, looking out at the horizon again. Yeah, this wasn't a game anymore. This was evolution. Two sides, learning, adapting, preparing. And somewhere in that silent sky, a realization settled in. The Blackbird wasn't untouchable. It was just harder to touch.